Hi, everybody. Mike here. Welcome to the Vox Podcast. So glad you're with us. Thanks for tuning in. Got a very special guest coming in live from Kansas City, Missouri. My friend, Tyler Chernesky. Say hello, Tyler.
What's up, Vox community?
And you can hear the Vox community shouting back to you, what's up, Tyler? Tyler and I have become friends through a series of mutual friends, and also through a common love of fashion, and all things fashionable. And so, when I told Tyler, "Hey, what's your Skype ID?" Tyler said, "I don't have one," and I thought, "Oh, well, you're behind." Tyler, really? You're a millennial, you're 28, right?
Yes.
And you don't have Skype. And you're like, no, I actually use other and better things. So Tyler had to download Skype and learn Skype. I didn't realize Skype was old, but I guess it is.
Throwing it back on Skype right now. And I had to get a Windows laptop for it. And I used Internet Explorer to download. And we can aim after this. Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Yes, aim. I forgot. So yes, we are on our AOL fan page. For those of you who are familiar with that joke. Anyway, Tyler put the mill in millennial, and he's got his glasses on. You were born what year? I can't do the math right now.
90.
Oh my.
990.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so let's see. I was 71. So that puts me, I don't know if my math is correct, but that puts me as slightly older than you.
Just a bit.
Just a little bit.
But you couldn't tell by looking at us.
Exactly right. Exactly right. So Tyler, I am so excited. What are you doing in Kansas City these days?
Well, I work as a pastor at a church/art gallery in Kansas City. So that's like the day job. I love it. But I'm also just living life in KC. I'm seeing theater. I'm going to the poetry readings. I'm at your TJ Maxx looking for a good deal. So a really multidimensional person who pastors primarily, but is also,
a connoisseur of fine culture.
I am trying to live that, fine culture life on the associate pastor budget. And so that's a whole struggle.
And it is well known for you international listeners that Kansas City, Missouri is a center of progressive fashion, thought, and art. And so it is
the Paris of the Plains. Did you know this?
No. Is that a thing?
I heard it from a dear friend once, and I'm trying to live into it. I believe it's true.
Okay.
But this center of
the Paris of the Plains.
Yeah.
Okay. Now that's something I did not expect. So coming at you live from the Paris on the Plains, it's our friend Tyler, pastor. Tyler, what's a bit of your story, if you don't mind kind of telling our listeners that led you to become at least for part of your time, a pastoral sort of person. What's the story that got you to that point?
Yeah. Well, I think in many ways that story began when I was adopted at birth.
Whoa.
Christian parents. That's right. So I know how much I cost. I always tell my parents, best money they ever spent, but adopted at birth to parents who had tried 7 years, I believe, to have a baby of their own.
Wow.
Could not have this child. And so through all kinds of a series of events, finally were able to purchase me.
Yeah.
And in their journey of not having a child, they had been praying. They were Jesus followers themselves. So they're praying, they're asking God for a child. And in many ways, I became their miracle baby. Their prayed for person. We've hoped for this day. We've waited for this day. Now you've arrived. And they bought me, and I was the only one they ever bought. So
wow.
Adopted, then only child. And that was in many ways, a great childhood for me. Grew up in, their church, a great church, our church, I should say.
In Kansas City.
We were in northern Indiana at the time.
Oh, okay.
So, Fort Wayne, Indiana, if you're aware. of the
second
scrolling metropolis.
Second only to Kansas City, Missouri. Yes.
Really, really only is, great culture in Fort Wayne too.
Yeah.
So that's where we're growing up.
It is the Tuscany of the Midwest.
It really, it's known for its like dense concentration of chain restaurants.
Oh, perfect.
So if you want to see an Applebee's,
yes,
if you haven't been in a while to an IHOP or something like that, go to Fort Wayne. Okay. They're all there.
Excellent.
So I'm living there. I'm growing up there in the church with my parents who love Jesus and are trying to introduce me to Jesus. And that's excellent. I mean, that's where maybe seeds of faith were planted. But
how old were you when you found out you were adopted?
Oh, my parents always told me. So that you got to know this. So this is the narrative I grew up with, because this will play in later. So it was always, you're God's gift to us, and here's how we got you. I mean, and so I've always had a very pro-adoption view. We thank God for my birth mom. We're so glad that she would, think to give her child to a family that could support them well. And this is how God brought you into our lives. And we're so grateful. And you're here with a purpose. And we know God put you in our family. So this is like the narrative, the deep beliefs that form my self-conception is God had a plan for me. He put me in this family. My family loves me. And here we are, just the three of us and the cat. I should mention our cat, Missy, or my mom would be upset because that was always my sister. So 3 humans and a cat made this family, but together.
Yeah.
Just living life in Fort Wayne at this great church that we were at with good friends and stuff there.
Oh, that's amazing.
So that's the beginnings. That's where it all began.
And then, go, keep going.
Well, no, it's your turn, Mike.
Okay, well, I grew up in Mansfield, Ohio. No, so as an only child, very deliberately chosen. I mean, who gets to say that? Like, we chose you. Was there any during that time? Was there any sort of searching for birth parents? Any wondering kind of where I fit? Was that message enough? Or were you still restless?
In many ways, for me, that story of being selected and chosen was enough. I would say, honestly, it's been my mom who's been more interested in looking for birth parents, mainly because she works in healthcare. And so she's wondering what I've got going on in these jeans, and not literally the jeans I'm wearing, but is there, genetically anything happening in a family? So she's been interested in family medical history, but gosh, by and large, I did feel real secure and at home in my adoptive family. And I haven't really had the desire even since to look for birth parents, even though it's something every so often, again, mom will bring up as just, hey, your birthday's coming. Do you want dad and I to hire the investigator this year? And I said, no, we can wait.
That's excellent. Wow. It sounds like great parents, dude. Unbelievable.
Sincerely.
What was the faith journey like during this time for you? Seeds of faith planted early, but how did that come to bear fruit?
Seeds early. So then I loved our church. So our church was actually pretty influenced by like old gospel music. So, nice. I mean, just rocking kind of gospel stuff. Andre Crouch. I don't know if you know, but just like, oh yeah. So that is the songs my soul sings. So we're influenced by gospel music, but then also a pretty performative space, a lively theatrical space in the church. So honestly, I just remember church being a big place, a wonderful place, a vibrant place. There's lots going on. And of course, that's attractive to this young theater kid at heart. I totally am eating it up. And then, it's not long until, you hear enough about Jesus dying for your sins that you say, gosh, I want that to be true, or I want to make sure that I'm right with God. And so, man, very early in life, I would say that I'm, in Sunday schools, I'm learning about who Jesus is. I'm excited about that. Honestly, probably for as long as I can remember, I don't have early memories of not being aware of Jesus or aware of, kind of the story, the message that we'd call the gospel.
And that journey from then until now has been completely smooth, right? No bumps, no hiccups.
Oh man, I was going to say I wish, but maybe I don't wish, because honestly, it's been probably a good thing to learn from a lot of the crap that's happened between then and now.
Yeah.
I know there's some things I wish wouldn't be part of the story, but oh man, yep, lots of hiccups along the way. So I am growing up in this church. I'm loving it. Things are great. Going well on the surface, let's say, but underneath, particularly in my interior world, at first, I'm realizing that stuff isn't quite right, or that maybe there's something going wrong with me. And here's what I mean by that. So I, like many folks do around kind of high school age, we're hitting the puberty. I'm getting all hormonal. I'm feeling the feelings. I'm sweating the stinky sweat now. I've graduated to that world. But as that's happening, I'm becoming more and more aware that I am not like my classmates. Maybe not like some others, and that it's like, holy cow, I think I'm gay. And I wouldn't have language for that at the time.
Yeah.
But I do have journals from that time. It's fascinating. Only children get really good at kind of spending time by themselves. So I've been a big journaler. I've got a rich inner life. I'm comfortable by myself. But during that time, it's like, holy cow, what's going on? And so I have, journal entries and prayers, and it's just like, oh Lord, initially, very much so it's just like, Lord, change this. Oh my gosh, this is so wrong. I know it's so wrong. So there's a lot of that happening at like maybe middle school, high school youth retreats.
Was it ever talked about in the church?
Oh no.
Okay.
Oh no.
So how did you know it was wrong?
That's a great question. I feel like, I don't want to say you just do, but maybe being in some of the, let's say, broadly evangelical conservative circles that we're in, maybe from the fact that it's not talked about. And then the fact that it was, I wouldn't say we were ever part of a church that was preaching, against gay folks or saying mean things about LGBT people, although I know that exists, but that wasn't necessarily our church. Yeah. But maybe it was the lack of it ever being mentioned and sort of the shameful silence around it that helped me know that when I was young. I can't say for sure. That's a great question, Mike.
Oh no, I'm absolutely fascinated. I can't imagine the journey. I just can't imagine it.
Silence can speak so loudly, I really do wonder if it was just some general silence. I can think of, maybe growing up, so there weren't a lot of gay characters or stuff on television, but maybe if there was a Nightline or something about it, or trying to think what even news events would have been happening at the time, but maybe my parents changed the channel or something, but less out of, again, I don't think it was gross, but more just like, oh, we want to, protect or keep our child from being aware of this just yet. But maybe that, all that coming together, it just becomes so clear that it's like, oh man, this isn't, and this isn't something worth kind of discussing or speaking about. So yeah, it really was unaddressed in our house, barring a few awkward moments where it would come to the fore with my parents. And even then it was very, we've always had a pretty open relationship, even as you can tell from talking so openly about the adoption or other things. But yeah, even in those moments, I think it's like we address it. Now we've addressed it. Now we're not.
And we're out.
Yeah.
No, so I think a lot of us parents are that way, where it's, it's easy to say, yep, check that box, done. And it's a church.
Moment, let's move on.
Yeah.
Right?
Thank God that's over.
Yes.
What was happening so your faith was developing, and then you have this other part of you that is emerging as well. How are you beginning to put those pieces together?
Yeah, not well at first. So I book that I think is so helpful for folks trying to understand, particularly the adolescent journey of LGBT folks, and probably to be more specific, it's written by like a gay man. It probably is more helpful in understanding specifically the journey of maybe gay men. But it's a book called Velvet Rage by a psychologist, Alan Downs. So not a theistic framework that he's writing from, but a good framework, a great psychological framework. And something he said has helped me understand what was happening to me then. So Downs says that homophobia is the fear of being gay. Shame is the fear of being unlovable.
Ooh.
And I know, oh, Mike, I know.
Yeah.
And he says that both need to be addressed. So from his psychological perspective, both need to be addressed in the life of gay people in order for there to be health and functioning and to move on from negative coping skills that he says LGBT people learn so early in life because they feel shame at a young age and they feel the pressure to hide who they are. He's like, we need to address, sure, both homophobia, so the fear of, being gay, this is, weird, this is different, but also this shame piece. And so I will say, man, when I first read that in The Velvet Rage, so Alan Downs' book, I was, I was just floored. And that shame piece, I can totally resonate with. I mean, that was probably the outcome of my first attempt to merge faith and sexuality. It was just like, holy cow, what do I do in light of this? Well, this is awful. I'm unlovable. This is shameful. I need to perform. I need to achieve. I need to excel. So I did that. I had 4 goals going into high school. I wanted to be a valedictorian, student body president, homecoming king, and prom king.
Boom.
And I lost prom king to someone who will go unnamed on the Vox podcast, just in case he's listening. But if the Carroll High School alums are here, you know who our prom king was. But man, everything else, it's really like, I'm going to achieve. I want to excel. I want to put on the good show, be the star everything, to prove, again, probably mostly to myself, that it's like, you are lovable. You're worthy of people's attention and care. And in the way you're going to do that, Tyler, in light of all that's going on, is to perform both for classmates, teachers, parents, and I think for the Lord as well. I mean, it's weird to think through even some of those, especially teenager days, but there was this odd desire that even though faith was so frustrating to me, I also wanted to volunteer and be doing church things even for a bit. Isn't that weird?
And I'm so grateful you're willing to share this, because adolescence is insane enough. Obviously, I survived it myself. I have 2 children in the middle of it, and just kind of living it again through them. And so I just can't imagine the wrestling that must have been going on as you're trying to put all this together in silence, right? You're not getting any direction from the church. You're not getting really any direction from your family. How old were you when you first considered telling somebody about this?
Ooh, man, I have journals. I could probably find the exact date. I think it's isn't that nuts?
That's awesome.
So these journals are one, I've got this buddy, Josh Jackson, that it's just like, man, if I ever, crash a car, die. I used to say this to him at IU. It's like, you have got to burn these journals and keep them from my parents. Not because they're bad. It's just way raw, adolescent processing.
Of course.
But it does feel like a 17, 18, I'm thinking, gosh, this needs to happen. This has been such a secret for so long. And there were, again, close friends maybe that knew, that even we talked in veiled terms. I think even my adolescence was so different now. I don't know what I would have done would I have been a teenager coming of age in 2018, because we were still, just to make it through my high school experience, even with those big goals I had, I'm not sure I would have been able to be all those things had I been more out in high school, just bluntly. I think that's changed now. But man, at the time, there were a variety of reasons I wanted to keep things secret.
I would imagine.
And I think I was even hopeful that, man, maybe if I keep stuff secret and gut it out a little bit more, maybe I could experience some kind of change and, have a wife, have kids, all this kind of thing. That's still, thinking about my teenage years, that's still where there was a lot of, whether it's the writing of organizations like Exodus or, similar organizations that were talking about orientation change, or just kind of that cluster of ideas. I think those ideas were still prevalent enough when I was a teenager that it's like, well, maybe if I keep it quiet, that for me. But probably that 17, 18, and then especially, man, going to college.
Oh man,
like this has to open up. Got to share.
Who was the first person you told? Do you remember?
Honestly, I can remember some key people. I don't know if I can remember first.
Okay.
Just because, I do think with the shame experience, because I've thought about this before, you just want to press so much stuff down and literally forget about it. I have wondered if one of the reasons it's harder for me. So I have a friend, Kate, who has like a freakish memory, Mike, freak memory. And it's a beautiful thing. I guess freak might not be a compliment. Stunning memory is what I meant to say. But the level of detail of her memory is impeccable. And I'm often like, why isn't my memory that way? And in one sense, I know memory can vary among people, but in another sense, they do say that, man, folks that have big secrets or, whether it's just kind of some early shame things going on, you just get good at forgetting things yourself. And I don't know if I can remember exactly who the first one is.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
But a key person for me was when I got to IU,
which is Indiana University.
Who's yours? Sorry, that's what we say there. I know you're that Buckeye, but still. When I got there, a friend TJ spoke to a friend TJ really openly about just my experience, my journey, and he was one of the first people I told within like a faith context. So he was a student leader, crew, so a Christian student organization there. And TJ was one that a key person I would say I told in kind of the journey, where I was both being honest, which is something I didn't have a whole lot of experience doing. I was much better at hiding. Yeah. So both being honest, which was new to me, but also being honest with a Christian person was new to me. Because I would say if there's high school friends that kind of knew or were aware, they weren't necessarily my Christian friends, if that makes sense.
Yep. Of course it does. Christians are well known for their ability to respond to people not like them with grace and compassion. So of course you would keep that quiet. Oh my goodness.
I know.
When did you tell your parents?
Yeah. So like the funny, weird stories we could talk about, because there were, I left them some real clues in high school. It led to some real awkward conversations, if that makes sense, through middle school or high school. So I think it's always been kind of out there with them. I think they even, maybe like me, I think for a season, were hoping that maybe there is some kind of change. Maybe you're going to date the right person, or the Lord's going to help you find just, one woman that you could be married to, and wouldn't that kind of solve things? I think they were in that boat for a while as well, even as I was. And even as I have friends who've walked that journey, that's a whole other conversation, but it's kind of holding out hope for that. And it's been, I guess it's been an evolving conversation with them now, getting to the point where me being a single pastor, kind of walking a particular journey that I felt God has for me, they're coming around to and getting all right with. Always have been, to be clear, they have always been so all right with me. And I know my parents love me, and I had a rough patch with my dad, sort of some dark ages in there, with him specifically, that now we're able to talk about more openly. And that's beautiful. One of the great events of my life was when I'm moving out of IU, my dad got to meet my college discipler mentor through crew, a guy named Mark. And Just the fact that they could be in the same space and talking about, and I never wanted to ask what went down in that conversation. But knowing my dad, I'm sure he thanked Mark for Mark's influence and that Mark said kind things to him. And I love that kind of two dudes that meant a whole lot to me, cared about me spiritually, got to have a little time together, even though it was very different seasons. But anyway, all that to say, it's come around. But yeah, with my parents, it's been a process for them as well to probably let go of some dreams that they had, that I think all parents have for their kids, probably let go of some of their dreams and maybe get on board with some other dreams that I have. Yeah.
How did you finally put together the faith piece, so much so that you're a pastor, and the realization that this wasn't going to go away and that this was a fundamental facet of who you were and are? Yeah. I mean, how did you reconcile all that when so many seem to either just wander away from faith at all, or find themselves in communities that are either ruthlessly affirming or ruthlessly non-affirming, but don't walk in kind of the messiness of the middle ground?
Yeah, I would say a few things have been super helpful. One was finding so many other Christians who had this as part of their story, who had tried different, whether it's changed things or tried some of the other stuff and it didn't work out. And I think that just friendship with them and hearing their stories saved me from a lot of some certain harm or some sort of difficulty in walking that road and being disappointed. So I would say the open stories of others was really valuable for me to think through. Okay, if change doesn't happen and I can't pray this away, that's not the worst thing in the world, and I don't need to be so upset or something that it couldn't happen for me, as if my faith was weak or something like that. There were just good friends that helped adjust some expectations there. But then broadly, and I am, again, by no means a master here, but I would say this is something I think about a lot, and this is a big motivator for me to continue to live in the messy middle, or in the space in which I live. But as I spoke more openly about my specific story with sexuality, and I would talk more about it at different crew events or other churches or things like that, I did start to see that other people who really resonated with my story were just others who were profoundly disappointed by their experience living and walking this earth as a Jesus follower, So I would share my story. I'd come in, I'd talk about shame and difficulty. And then I would say, usually, that it's like, and hey, as best as I understand it now and reading the biblical text, I do see kind of this historic tradition, Christian sexual ethic as marriage between a man and a woman. I see that hopping off scripture, the pages of scripture. I can't help but see it any other way. And so I'm trying to walk this path with Jesus, the costly discipleship and following him, but also upholding what I see to be true in scripture. And I find myself in this weird middle. So I'd share that. And then there'd be people that come up afterwards saying, hey, I, don't necessarily have the same story, but I have this experience or this thing in my life, or I, was never married and I've been single for so long and walking this road, and it's been hard to, find support or comfort in the church. And I feel invisible as a single person and no one ever notices me. Yeah. And I started realizing there's this whole community of people in the church for whom, following Jesus isn't the American dream, or following Jesus isn't just success after success, victory after victory, but it really is something that feels like, dying to self. Maybe we've read that somewhere before. And that there were more of us. Certainly there's plenty of us in the LGBT community.
Yeah, no kidding.
More of us. And that there needed to be, support or care or voice given to that community. And I think that's what, kept me engaged in faith, kept me even engaged in church, or thinking that church could be a good thing. Because it's like, where else do these people go? Some of my dearest friends, even in my church here now, are, some of the older single women, or, folks with disabled children, or whatever it might be, but just people that it's like, this isn't life how I once dreamed. It's the life I have now, and it's the life I love.
Yeah.
That I see God shaping me through. It's all those things, but
It's the fellowship of the disappointed.
Yeah, but it hasn't been just glory after glory, success after success, all with a happy bow. And it's like, all right, if that's something that church could be, and if I think that's something that Jesus uniquely equips us to handle well and handle lovingly and be engaged on the long haul with other people. I mean, it's like, okay, I can be about this, or I can be engaged in this.
Yeah.
Because I see the benefit that it brings to that kind of community. So that's probably what kept me around, was recognizing, okay, there's some other people walking difficult paths of discipleship too. And if I just jet out now and say, screw it, I'm young, beautiful, I'm going to go live my life how I want to live it, which again, I don't want to make that caricature as what everyone else is doing in the LGBT thing. But for me, it was like, those were the two options I saw. It's like, because of my scriptural convictions, I have the option to live according to those, or to go do other things. It's just like, well, man, I think I can embrace costly discipleship and invite others to do the same and be there beside others as they're doing the same.
Oh, so good, dude.
Yeah.
So part of why I love hearing you speak about these things is, I think there is a gaping hole, one of, I'm sure many, about how the church. So I've served in churches that have singles ministries. I've served in churches where, we break people up by life stage and those sorts of things. But you've ranted, as we've talked on the phone before, about the lack of support, or the lack of compassion, or even just awareness of that whole section. The section undergoing very costly discipleship. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Well, both the section undergoing very costly discipleship, but also one of the largest growing demographics in our country. So
true.
Yes, single people in church get a raw deal in many cases. I think I'm comfortable saying that. What do people say now? Is it change my mind?
Hashtag change my mind.
Change my mind about that. I think it's true. I think it's nuts. It is nuts to me that there aren't more high-profile single pastors, authors, writers in the church when Jesus himself came to earth and lived as true humanity, really, for us, and was unmarried himself.
Yep.
And we now have the Church of Jesus Christ, but supposedly all its leaders have to be married folks with children. That is funky to me. And again, I love kids. I was a children's librarian. I love marriage. I would dance my little booty off at your wedding, Mike, if I would have been there, right? I mean, I'm all about it. I'm not.
You would have been 11, but okay.
Yes, right? Yeah, I'm not mad at marriage. I'm not mad at kids. It's just crazy to me that we have Jesus's example, that we have the Apostle Paul's example, that we have John Stott's example, that we have the example of many. I mean, honestly, I read a great history once where people told the history of parachurch college ministries essentially as the story of single women carrying God's mission forward. And it's so compelling.
That's
and
true.
I think from my experience, so true. So it's like we have all these single people in our church, a part of the church trying to follow Jesus. And I would say just unnoticed, overlooked for a long time within the church. And then what gets me a little more fired up is the fact that it's not only are we overlooking what I think is a deep theological truth that single people matter, that you're not less human, that you're not, by not having a partner, missing out on what it means to be fully human. And who will tell you that in our romance-saturated culture? Who will tell you that? But I deeply believe it true, and I see it to be true in Scripture. So not only is there a theological issue, I think, by an underdeveloped view of singleness in the church, but missionally, my friends all the time are talking about we got to reach the next generation, and so we're going to do it by launching a church with a great kids ministry. And again, I love kids. I love kids. Yeah. I can quote Shel Silverstein, a children's poet, about as well as I can quote Scripture. I mean, I love children, but I'm not convinced when our largest growing demographic are single people, when folks are delaying marriage, when there is, so many cities in our country where, 48%, 40%. I've got a map that I reference all the time that shows all these cities in our country where there's just high rates of single people. 1 in 7 people lives alone in the United States, so lives by themselves. Eric Klinenberg at NYU professor talks about the rise of people living alone. And so it's like, if that's our time, if that's our place, and we think that Jesus has something to say to all people everywhere. What does he have to say to the growing number of single people in the United States in 2018? And I don't hear it, you know?
What are some of the ways you've seen or felt the church, capital C, miss this or communicate unwelcome messages? Not even intentionally, because no church is going to say, no, we don't want single people. But they'll say, like I said, I mean, here's a singles ministry. Oh, if you're single, here you go.
Yeah.
What are some of the things you've picked up on, overtly or non-overtly, that communicate that?
Yeah, I do think that, and I'll share some of my stories, and then I will channel other single friends, and they know who they are. But I do think singles ministries that kind of give off the vibe that we're here to help singles meet one another is a really offensive deal. And certainly that's why some people want to be in singles ministries, help me find the other singles in the church. And I'm not opposed to people meeting. But if that ever comes across as the goal for having that kind of ministry, or even is mentioned as a goal, one of 3 leading goals for having that ministry, it can be offensive, particularly to older singles within the church, whether or not they'll come to the single ministry. So many single ministries are young singles.
Yeah.
But the messaging about those ministries for young folks as a place to meet can be offensive to older singles. That just, you feel the devaluation in that claim. Hey, we're making space for the young folks to meet. It's probably a little too late for you. Please keep giving. Please keep coming. You're valued here, but we're not interested in helping you cultivate deeper friendship. Which even just saying friendship there, I think preaching on friendship is so poor. Modeling of friendship is so poor. What does it look like for, adult relationships where folks are committed to one another in serious, deep, meaningful relationship that's not, partner, spouse to spouse? We have a friendship, a lack of friendship epidemic in our culture broadly and within our churches, I would say. I also feel it too. I think it's, like you've said so many times on this podcast, when you don't have certain people in the room, you just don't even realize what's missing. I would say some church messaging is awful when it comes to single people, and it would just need slight tweaks to be better. So an example that I just recently got off the phone talking about, so it's fresh. So we're doing, financial literacy stuff within our church, and it's great. And we want people to know God's wisdom for money, right? Well, so much of the Christian resources around financial literacy are always, change your family tree. That's what one very popular financial guru says a lot, right? Do this so you can change your family tree. Well, what if I'm, the last beautiful flower on my family tree? There's still, I believe, because I love the Bible, there's still some God, ordained wisdom for me as it relates to finances. And there's still some good I can do in the world with what I've been entrusted, but it's not going to be changing my family tree necessarily.
Right.
And to me, that's subtle messaging that can shift. There's other ways to get people interested in finances or get people interested in, serving within the church or just other classes. But there's weird language things that I probably am more sensitive to, that get under my skin a little more. And then I always have to remind myself, well, there was probably no single person in the room when this was written, no single person in the communication department, no one in the copy, but let's be honest.
True.
Church staff pages. It probably never crossed anyone's mind along the way when a slight tweak could make all the difference. So man, I just do, I feel it a lot. Again, it feels like another one of those things that it's probably never explicitly said, although I know some churches are pretty explicit about their belief that everyone needs to be married. But let's say in more, Jesus-centered, actually Bible-based churches that recognize that there are single vocations and married vocations. In those spaces, I'd say it's usually just probably a thoughtfulness around language or practice that probably stems from not having any single people on staff or in a leadership role. That makes all the difference. Now I'm mid-rant, Mike.
Go.
But when was the last time you saw a single elder in a church, an unmarried elder?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Could Jesus be an elder in his own church? Could Paul be an elder in the churches to whom he was writing?
Come on.
That's another one that gets me all the time, that it's surely surely there is in the United States, in so many churches, godly, older people, I'll say, but older men. If your church needs just men, great, but godly, older men that can lead your church that were never married or that aren't married now. I mean, that has to exist, right?
Yeah.
I believe that. But I just never see them in spots either. So anyway, it is something that grinds my gears.
Well, you were at, was it a church planners evaluation? What was, tell us that story.
Yeah, I have been evaluated for church planting. And it was wonderful. I mean, it was a really affirming process at the end, but it really, there was a lot of just my writing to get in there and recognizing sort of the culture. And honestly, some of the recruitment pitches that come up in church plant world, you'll see them, soliciting applications by saying, we're looking for, a lead planting couple, or ideally a lead planting couple would have, these qualifications. And again, I love marriage, I love couples, but it's just like lead planting couple, like what is the New Testament chapter and verse on that?
Right.
Right. And I get what they're saying.
Well, married people don't struggle with sexuality. Marriage solves all sexual problems. I'm sorry you didn't get the memo on that.
We just missed that in my seminary classes. I got screwed, Mike. No one told me that. Okay, well, that would have solved it, because just that lead planting couple language was just language for me that was like, hey, I get what you're going at, and you're right. If you are married and planning a church, you probably both need to be invested in it. Yeah. Certainly, if that's what you're trying to say. But even there, I think we need more single pastors in the U.S. We need more single church planters, especially if everyone wants to plant in these urban devos, and that's where everyone wants to go. No one's there at a church planting assessment to do a rural plant, or something they are. They want to take Chicago. They want to take New York for Jesus, which
Fort
is
Wayne.
Great. Love it. Yeah, and I'm not trying to, Fort Wayne, the Paris, right? But that's everyone's goal while they're there. And it's just like, do you realize that the majority of the people to whom you might be ministering to in that setting will be single? Yeah. And that it would be advantageous to have a single pastor there. I mean, I was just in Berlin, and it was refreshing. I was in Berlin talking to a pastor there, and the pastor said in the presence of his wife, I wish I were still single because we have so many single people here. And it wasn't weird, and it wasn't mean, and he's not saying I wish I was unmarried, but it felt like he actually understood what Paul was talking about in 1 Corinthians when he says, I wish you could be as I am because I'm able to do ministry well. He said, I used to be able to connect so well with our singles. And again, glad I got married, he was saying, and not, trying to impugn my wife in any way. Yeah. But it was just refreshing to hear someone that seemed to have a biblical ethic and missiology and understanding of, gosh, I could be a better shepherd to my people were I still to share their life stage and circumstance.
Yes, I feel that way about being skinny. I wish I were still skinny so I could reach the skinny people.
We can pray for that, Mike. We can just.
I have been. So you're a pastor, and I'm assuming at this point, because you're announcing all of that, I mean, your church is aware, the church leadership is aware, all of that's aware. Any weirdness there, or any extra suspicion, or any of that stuff?
I would say not from my immediate church, really. It's usually, if people are suspicious or have weird feelings, it's usually folks that aren't immediately connected with me, if that makes sense. So to be more specific, when I applied to come here and work at this particular church, you better believe I shared, the full story in a little application there. And, because I didn't want to be, surprised on the back end, like, oops, never mind, this won't work out. And they've been excellent. And all my, my bosses know at every level, right? So my immediate kind of campus pastor or one of those multi-site churches all the way up to the top, people are aware, and that's great. And they work with me. They see me, day in, day out, wonderful there. And I would say the same thing. Our little downtown campus at Christ Community is also a place where I haven't felt judged, suspicious. Now, I will say there, I haven't necessarily led with my story there at the downtown campus. So I've spoken openly about it in other venues. A lot of folks have found my, testimonies or different podcast things or talks online. But it's not like the main feature at the downtown campus, or really it all in the church. I mean, we're doing other stuff as a church, but I'd say there in that local setting, people have been outstanding, supportive. I mean, if anything, people say, gosh, we're so glad to have you as a pastor, but never, what the heck. But if people do get weirded out or have kind of questions that I think might be rooted more in fear or suspicion than in anything more sincere or noble, it tends to be folks that aren't around, aren't immediately present, don't get to see it lived out day in and day out, and then make some assumptions from a distance.
But here's the thing I'm thinking as you're answering. I'm sitting here thinking, okay, so do we make anybody else live that way? So here's the inappropriately divorced pastor. Here's the pastor that looks at porn.
Come on.
Here's the greedy pastor. Here's the narcissistic pastor. I've been all of those.
Yeah.
And no one ever made me have to make sure everyone was aware of my story. I mean, it's still, even asking the question, I hesitated because I'm like, this feels yucky. Because there's still this big double standard. Because what I'm trying to get at, Tyler, that's so interesting to me is I think for a lot of traditional conservative church folk, when it comes to men and women who are same-sex attracted, there's either the shut it down, ignore it, don't talk about it, get married, pray through it, that mode.
Yes.
Or there's the, oh, well, then you must just be this immoral, pagan that's going to fry in a frying pan and, whatever. These unholy, you're an abomination kind of. And so I'm trying to so Nate, who's a mutual friend, presented this thoughtful, well, but what if there's another category to this conversation of people because of their biblical convictions who choose to walk in celibacy and yet still desire to experience affection, companionship, deep friendship. Shouldn't they be blessed in this endeavor in the way that we would bless anybody else who desires to walk in obedience? The thing that I'm fascinated is this is a new category for people. And there's I think there's a deep, I know it's true for me, so I'm projecting, but there's a deep lack of awareness about how to walk well. Because on the one hand, I can hear people saying, yeah, but aren't you experiencing the same cost of discipleship everyone else does? Right? So I'm married, right? Can you hear somebody saying that?
People have said that. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I can hear people say that. Yep. Well, yeah, you're disappointed. I'm disappointed too. My marriage, I'm married. My marriage is horrible. So I'm right there with you. What, just for a slight rabbit trail, what do you say in those moments to people who would just say, well, yeah, of course, you're struggling the same way everyone struggles, so why should you get special, treatment, recognition, whatever?
Yeah. I usually don't say much because I want to practice the discipline, not always having to have the last word and shutting it down. But in my heart, maybe what I think is that I hear that. And it is true that there are so many other people with difficult stories in church. And honestly, when I talk to so many LGBT Christians that I know, I try to remind them of that we've got a real difficult journey, many of us, because of course I'm in a lot of these communities, right? Of people all trying to figure out what it means to follow Jesus well in light of this shared experience. We got a real difficult experience, but there's other people with difficult experience. That is true. But man, I just don't think people have any idea when they say that, I don't want to say the total denial of a dream, but in a culture that certainly glorifies romance and does suggest, and not just in a culture, in a church, it does suggest your best partner, support, person for accomplishing what God has called you to do in the world. The best support you're going to get to do your God-given reason for being on earth is going to come through one particular person to whom you're married. When that is so much of a message that's given, and I understand that marriages can be difficult and complicated. We've got difficult marriages in our church. But when that's the message that, yeah, God's called you to do something great in the world and he's given you a spouse to support you in that endeavor, when you feel like you're precluded from even exploring that kind of a relationship, that is I would argue from my experience again, and I don't want to ever get in a pain Olympics, or a difficulty Olympics, but that is a unique kind of pain. And that is a unique cross to bear, to say, because I'm convinced Jesus is who he says he is, and because I've read these texts and landed in this conviction, and this is what I think Jesus says about human design, I'm going to walk this really, really difficult journey that's so counter to everything my culture says I need for fulfillment and my church says
I need good
fulfillment of my mission. That is a unique kind of pain that I would argue many married people haven't experienced.
Tyler,
but I usually don't say that to them in the moment. I'm just like, your perspective.
But bro, thank you. I mean, that right there, that 5 minutes, that's really powerful, man. Thank you. I mean, that's a huge, I don't even know how to articulate. I'm just grateful that you'd share it, and so articulately the thing that, because I feel, and again, I'm old and late to this whole party, but it does seem to me, and I can't articulate why, but it does seem to me it's a unique thing, and it's different from just heterosexual people being celibate or single. Like that, for some, yes, the death of marriage, the death of the possible. I mean, we have a couple of just dear single friends, and it is brutal, and it is you are being crucified as you walk through this. But it does seem like it's a unique kind of thing, and so I'm just saying thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, if I'm going to get even more transparent, I also think one of the things that make it different is and maybe this is just me and my experience, but kind of I could if I wanted to, but I won't. Because thinking of some of the single people that I know in our church that, again, it's been super difficult and wished you could be married but not married. In many cases, they tried dating and it just didn't work out for certain reasons with different folks. And now it's just a disappointment that I never found the person. For so many gay single people in the church or gay celibate folks trying to walk this journey, it's that I never even got the chance, put me in, coach. Well, I never even got the chance to put in because I said no before that, because, why would I even date if I think that Jesus isn't cool at the end of it? So I think there's just a different kind of headspace that says I've said no so early in even the process of pursuing a partner. And it would have worked out if I could have, but I said no. And what if, I think just that kind of space, I don't know if I'm articulating that clearly.
No, there's still the possibility.
Yeah. Well, there's still the possibility. And it's just like, but then I was prevented from the possibility.
Right.
I think that's the angst. Or if I really lean into the Psalms sometime and get a little angry with the Lord and, write that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But it is I feel hemmed in from even exploring that possibility, and that's frustrating sometimes. And again, I know there's all kinds of listeners here, the critical listeners. Yes, I'm convinced of the traditional sexual ethic. I hate having to say that. Yeah, the Bible, all that authority, yeah, sure. But I get mad sometimes and I feel hemmed in, held in from even exploring that. It's like, what gives, Lord,
Yeah.
And I think that's too another kind of the pain. It's like I'm preempting things at such an early stage in finding a partner. I'm saying no thanks. And that it just, the loss there feels really immense.
Yeah. I can't even imagine, my friend. I cannot even imagine. But I'm so grateful you have helped me. I don't know, just be aware of this whole. I mean, seriously, as I've sat in so many large church conversations, these aren't conversations that are being had. No, not even remotely. Yeah. And that's why, no, bro, no, don't be sorry. That's why I was so eager to get you on the podcast and kind of talk online about the many things we've talked about offline.
Well, and if I could say one more thing, Mike, I'm
Of
sorry.
course. No, don't apologize.
You
Go.
see this little fire in my face. I also think we need this conversation to happen for many reasons, but one of the reasons it needs to happen is I years ago was told by a mentor that they said, your joy, Tyler, will be your strongest apologetic for the gospel being true. And the fact that you're walking a difficult journey with joy, that's going to be the biggest thing that helps people realize Jesus is real. He is who he says he is. He loves us. His design for the world is good. The fact that he would create an institution like the church that in its best moments does care for people of all backgrounds and varieties, single and married, rich and poor, young and old, well and sick, all of that in the same place. It's a brilliant design, the church as a family. It's a beautiful thing. But your joy will be your strongest apologetic. And I just feel like for years, particularly LGBT folks, because there's been no conversation around this. Like you said, I've sat in big church settings and no one talks about it. We've had to lead with a more, I don't want to say angry, but like a feisty, an activist type voice has had to be our voice just to be heard or just to be noticed or just to get it on the church agenda. And I think just now, again, living in this little world of Christians trying to kind of live out this type of discipleship, just now we're just beginning to be able to write about the joy that we experience, the good parts of life, the happiness that still comes in the midst of singleness, the joys of celibacy and friendship and diving into that. It feels like we're just now free enough, we're able enough to write about the joy. And that's what gets me excited moving forward, being a part of this little movement is like, okay, finally, hopefully we have a hearing somewhere, people are listening. Now we can actually discuss what life well lived in this story, a particular kind of single people within the church. Now we can finally write how that looks in a good way or in a happy way. But we just, for many reasons, I think that hasn't been able to happen yet. And I'm excited for folks to get that joyous vision of what, contented, flourishing, supported single life could be.
But see, Tyler, it's impossible to be joyful if you don't have all your personal needs met. So I'm sitting here and I'm listening to you, and here's the inner dialogue. The inner dialogue is, Jesus wouldn't have called this special Christianity. He would have just called this Christianity. Right. The fact that American Christians, and the reason I'm saying this is because I'm this way, cannot fathom following Jesus in such a costly manner. But that's what just following Jesus was. It wasn't radical. That was just what following, regular, normal following was. That you lay down your dreams, you lay down your ambitions, you lay down and you pick up whatever it is that God has laid before you. And, we call that special Christianity these days, but back then that was just what it meant to follow Jesus. And so the idea of joy in the midst of health crisis, that's tough. The joy in the midst of financial ruin, that's tough. Joy in the midst of family conflict, tough. But sex is its own thing in our culture. So joy in the midst of non-fulfillment, that I think that might be the one most difficult to understand of all of them.
Yeah.
You know? So, man, amen and amen. Tyler.
I could take up an offering after that sermon you just did.
What? Dude, no, I'm just reflecting on your words, dude. Holy cow.
Great. That's just Christianity. I need that as a tattoo, Come on.
Well, because I sit and I think about my walk with Jesus, and I'm sitting here going, okay, there are areas of disappointment, of course, but I haven't striven for joy in those areas. What I've striven for is, okay, God, fix those.
Yep.
I've not, I'm sitting here and my heart's going out to you, but then there's this other voice in me going, he's just following Jesus. This is what it is, and in some cases it's harder than other cases. But if I'm not experiencing in some place that same kind of death to self, you have to wonder if it's Jesus I'm really following, right? I mean, you have to just be like, okay. I mean, the closest I can come, Tyler, is having a sweet little dude I talk about all the time with special needs, and the death of what I didn't even realize was the dream of a perfect family and expectations for kids, and instead I have this just incredible relationship with this little guy, but it's been a dying to that. And that's not changing. It's not going anywhere. He's with us forever. And yet that's Jesus following, is it not? I mean, that's the picture. And so anyway, Tyler, I'm sorry. I'm just outwardly processing on the genius stuff you were saying, because I think what Nate did was incredible theologically. But I've just so admired the way you are in this space, the way that you are unapologetically, unabashedly trying to follow Christ as a gay man, and someone who's not ashamed by that or not silenced by that, and in church leadership. I mean, that's where I just go, okay, that's awesome. That's interesting to me. And so, man, thank you for sharing so much. I really appreciate it. I really do, bud.
No, it's been a gift to be here. Yeah.
Where can people find you? Online?
Kansas City.
Yes.
Don't come find me. That would be scary. In person, I mean. Online, yeah, I guess I'm on the Twitter at Tyler Chernesky, CHERNESKY.
You are on the Twitter?
Living my life and tweeting away. Yeah.
And you're very dressy in your Twitter profile pic.
Thank you. Yes. I try to live every day or dress every day as if I might at some point be photographed, because you never know. And so it's just better. And clearly I can tell you do too, Mike. You're always in black, always ready for the camera.
Oh, yeah. So absolutely.
Good wisdom.
Oh, it's so good. So good. Well, Vox, we'll let you go. Thank you, Tyler, for your kindness and honesty, and so good, man. Such good stuff. To the rest of the community, love hearing your perspectives on these things. So grateful for all the emails rolling in about some of the stuff we've been talking about, and particularly for those who disagree. Love that. We want to be that kind of place where there's just permission to wrestle, to walk, to whatever. So, and until next time, my brothers and sisters, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord shine his face upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance to you, and in these days may he give you peace. Thank you, Tyler, and until next time, friends.